My father transferred the restaurant business to my brother behind my back, so I removed my chef's coat, left without warning, and opened a 5-star dining empire that bankrupted them within 18 months. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, say hello below, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything. Let's continue. I found the papers while looking for the lease agreement Dad asked me to file. My hands were still dusted with flour from the morning prep, and I remember thinking how the white powder looked like ash against the black ink of the transfer documents. Transfer of ownership. Daryl Williams. My brother's name. Not mine. Never mine. 23 years I'd given to Williams' family kitchen. I was 7 when Mama first lifted me onto a stool so I could reach the counter, teaching me how to knead dough until it felt like silk under my fingers. "You got magic hands, baby girl," she'd whispered, and I believed her. I believed in a lot of things back then. The restaurant had been my entire life. While Daryl was out playing basketball and chasing girls, I was in that kitchen learning every station. Guard, manger, soy, grill. I mastered them all. By 16 I was running weekend services. By 21 I'd revolutionized our menu, bringing in customers from 3 counties over. The line out the door every Friday? That was because of my honey bourbon ribs and my grandmother's mac and cheese recipe that I'd perfected with smoked Gouda. But apparently none of that mattered. I stood there in Dad's office, the papers trembling in my grip, and I could hear the lunch rush starting in the dining room. Heard Dad's booming laugh as he greeted regulars. That same laugh that used to make me feel safe now sounded like betrayal set to music. The date on the documents was from 3 months ago. 3 months he'd been lying to my face, letting me work 16-hour days while knowing I'd never own what I'd built. I walked into the dining room holding those documents like evidence at a trial. Dad was at table 7 schmoozing the Hendersons when he saw me. Something in my face made his smile falter. "We need to talk. Now." My voice cut through the restaurant chatter. In his office I slapped the papers on his desk. "When were you planning to tell me?" Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked older suddenly, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. "Susan, baby, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you transferred everything to Marcus? That you signed over my life's work to a man who can barely tell a sauté pan from a stock pot." I was shaking, rage and heartbreak warring inside my chest. "Daryl is the man of the family," Dad said, and those 7 words destroyed me. "He needs to carry on the Williams name. You'll get married someday, change your name, have your own family to focus on. This business needs a man at the helm." Actually laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. "A man? Dad, Daryl hasn't worked a full week here in 2 years. Last month, when he was supposed to handle the Dixon wedding reception, where was he? I'll tell you, passed out drunk while I cooked for 200 people by myself. He's still learning." "Learning? I've been carrying this place since I was a teenager." My voice cracked. "Who rebuilt the menu when we were failing? Who handles all the vendor relationships? Who trained every single cook we have?" He did. "It was always me." Dad's jaw tightened. "You're being emotional. This is business." "No," I said quietly. "This is betrayal. Mom insisted on a family dinner that Sunday to work things out. I should have known better than to expect support from her. She'd always favored Marcus, her precious baby boy who could do no wrong. The moment I walked into their house, I knew it was an ambush. Daryl sat at the table wearing a smirk that made my blood boil. His girlfriend, Tasha, who I'd caught stealing from the register twice, draped herself over him like a trophy. "There's our little chef," Daryl said with mock affection. "Dad told me you're upset." "Upset?" I set my purse down carefully, fighting for composure. "That's an interesting word for what I am." Mom brought out her famous pot roast, the one she only made for special occasions. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Susan, honey, you need to understand. Your father and I talked about this extensively. Daryl needs this opportunity to prove himself." "Prove himself?" "With my restaurant." I looked at each of them, searching for any hint of shame. Found none. "I've already proven myself every single day for over 2 decades. Daryl leaned back in his chair. "See, this is what Dad was talking about. You're too emotional for business ownership. You take everything personally." The rage that flashed through me was white hot. You're right, Marcus. I do take it personally when someone steals my future. Tell me, have you even read through the vendor contracts? Do you know what our food cost percentage is? Can you name 3 of our regular suppliers? He waved his hand dismissively. I'll figure it out. Besides, Tasha's going to help manage the front of house. Who couldn't count change properly. Who showed up late and left early. Who'd never worked a real service in her life. This is insane, I whispered. I hired attorney Patricia Johnson on Monday morning. She was a sharp woman in her 50s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. When I laid out the situation, she reviewed my documentation with increasing interest. You have employment records, contributions, menu development, all documented? She asked. Everything. I kept meticulous records. Every recipe I developed, every vendor relationship I built, every renovation I fought for. It's all documented with dates and details. Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. Legally, your father had the right to transfer his business to whomever he chose. However, she paused, tapping her pen against her notepad. You've mentioned several recipes that were your original creations. Those intellectual property rights belong to you, not the restaurant. My heart started pounding. What does that mean? It means your signature dishes, the ones bringing in customers, you can legally prevent the restaurant from using them. They're your proprietary creations. She smiled, and it was sharp as a knife. But I'd recommend a different approach. Have you considered starting your own establishment? The idea hit me like lightning. My own restaurant. My vision. My rules. I've worked for William's Family Kitchen exclusively since I was 17, I said slowly. I never signed a non-compete agreement because Dad said family didn't need contracts. Then you're free to compete directly. Patricia's smile widened. And with your reputation, you'd have investors interested immediately. I thought about everything I'd built, everything they'd stolen from me. Then I thought about what I could build for myself. Let's burn it all down, I said. Professionally speaking. Patricia's laugh was pure satisfaction. Now you're talking my language. I walked into William's Family Kitchen on Tuesday wearing my chef's whites for the last time. It was 3 p.m. between lunch and dinner service, the perfect time for what I was about to do. Dad and Daryl were in the office, reviewing papers they probably didn't understand. I didn't knock. I'm done, I said simply, untying my apron. Dad looked up confused. What do you mean done? We've got a full book tonight. I quit. Effective immediately. I folded my apron with military precision and set it on his desk. Then I removed my chef's coat, the one with Executive Chef Susan Williams, embroidered over the heart. The one I'd earned. Daryl laughed. You can't quit. We need you for tonight's service. No, you needed me for the last 23 years. You just didn't value me enough to keep me. I pulled my knife roll from my bag. My personal knives, the ones Mama gave me before she passed. I'm taking what's mine. My knives, my recipes, my self-respect. Dad stood up, panic finally crossing his face. Susan, be reasonable. We can talk about this. You had 3 months to talk to me, Dad. 3 months while I worked my fingers to the bone, believing I had a future here. My voice was steady now, cold as winter. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. You can't take the recipes, Daryl sputtered. Those belong to the restaurant. Wrong. Those belong to me. Check with your lawyer if you don't believe me. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? Tonight's menu has my signature dishes. The honey bourbon ribs, the Gouda mac and cheese, the peach cobbler that people drive an hour for. All mine. Good luck explaining to your full dining room why nothing tastes right anymore. I sat in my car for 10 minutes after leaving, hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. Then my phone rang. It was Chef Raymond Sterling, a mentor from my culinary school days who now owned 3 successful restaurants uptown. I heard through the grapevine you might be available, he said without preamble. Are the rumors true? Word traveled fast in the restaurant world. Depends on what you heard. That you finally walked away from that family circus and you're ready to build something of your own. He paused. Susan, I've been watching your work for years. You're one of the most talented chefs I know, and you've been wasting it in that place. I have investors who'd kill to back you. My throat tightened. Chef, I appreciate it, but I just walked out. I have no capital, no location. You have something better. You have skill, vision, and a reputation. That's currency in this business. His voice softened. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a partnership. I've already talked to 3 investors who remember your food from the James Beard dinner 2 years ago. They want in. The James Beard dinner. The one Dad didn't think was worth my time, so I'd gone on my own dime. The one where I'd served my modern take on soul food to some of the most influential people in the industry. You're serious? It wasn't a question. Dead serious. Meet me tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. Let's build you an empire. I hung up and cried for the first time since finding those papers. But these weren't tears of grief anymore. They were something else entirely. The next 6 months were chaos and magic mixed together. Chef Sterling connected me with 3 investors who each contributed $50,000. We found a location. A beautiful old building downtown that had been a jazz club in the 50s. It needed work, but I could see the potential in every brick. We'll call it Susan's, Chef Sterling suggested one afternoon as we reviewed architectural plans. I shook my head. No. We'll call it Metamorphosis. I traced the outline of what would become the dining room. Because that's what we're all doing here. Transforming into something better. The investors loved it. They loved even more when I presented my menu concept. Elevated soul food with modern techniques. Duck confit with collard greens and bourbon gastrique. Shrimp and grits with truffle oil and crispy prosciutto. Oxtail ravioli in red wine reduction. But I made sure to include familiar favorites too with my own twist. My version of fried chicken used a buttermilk brine and Japanese milk bread crumbs. My mac and cheese featured 5 artisanal cheeses and a pecan panko crust. Meanwhile, William's family kitchen was struggling. I heard through the grapevine that Dad had to hire 3 different chefs in 2 months. None could replicate my dishes. Customers complained. Reviews turned negative. Their weeknight business dropped by 40%. Daryl called me twice a week at first. I never answered. The 3rd week, Tasha called. Susan, please, we're dying here. Can't you just come back part-time? We'll pay you. I'm busy, I said simply. Building something better. I hung up and smiled. Revenge tasted sweeter than any dish I'd ever created. Metamorphosis opened on a Friday in September. We'd been booked solid for 3 weeks before opening, purely on reputation and word of mouth. The dining room looked stunning. Exposed brick, warm lighting, tables dressed in cream linens with fresh flowers. A jazz trio played softly in the corner, honoring the building's history. I stood in my kitchen, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Pride. Purpose. Table 6 needs their appetizers, chef. My sous chef called out. Heard. I responded, plating duck confit with practiced precision. Every movement was meditation. Every dish was perfection. 2 hours into service, my hostess rushed to the kitchen, eyes wide. Chef, there's someone here to see you. Says he's your father. My hands stilled over a plate of oxtail ravioli. Tell him we're fully booked and he can make a reservation like everyone else. She hesitated. He's causing a scene. I wiped my hands and walked out to the dining room. Dad stood near the entrance, looking smaller than I remembered. Daryl lurked behind him, and behind Marcus, Mom stood with her arms crossed. Susan. Dad's voice cracked. Please. Can we talk? The dining room had gone quiet. Every eye was on us. I could feel my staff tensing, ready to throw them out if I gave the word. You're disrupting my customers, I said calmly. Either leave or I'll call the police. Your own father? Mom gasped. You'd do that to family? I looked at her, really looked at her. You stopped being my family when you stood by and watched him steal my future. Now leave before I have you escorted out. They left. And my customers gave me a standing ovation. The review came out 3 weeks after opening. Gerald Thompson, the city's most respected food critic, the man who could make or break a restaurant with a single article. I didn't read it at first. Couldn't. Chef Sterling read it aloud to me in my office and I watched his face split into a grin. Susan Williams has done something extraordinary at Metamorphosis, he read. She's taken the soul food tradition and elevated it to heights that would make Auguste Escoffier weep with joy. Her duck confit with collard greens is a revelation. Crispy skin giving way to tender meat, paired with greens that still taste like Sunday dinner at Grandma's house, but with a sophistication that belongs in fine dining. He continued, but the real story here isn't just the food. It's the rise of a chef who refused to be diminished. Williams worked for over 2 decades at Williams' Family Kitchen, where she was the unacknowledged heart and soul. Now on her own she's proven what many of us suspected, she was always the star. The review gave us 5 stars. 5 perfect stars. My phone exploded. Reservations booked out 2 months. Food blogs picked up the story. Someone from a food network called about a show. And Williams' Family Kitchen? Their latest review gave them 2 stars, noting that the magic that once made this establishment special has clearly moved on. Dad called that night. I let it go to voicemail. His message was rambling, desperate. Susan, please, we're losing everything. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Daryl can't, he doesn't. We need you. I deleted it without finishing. Some bridges don't deserve to be rebuilt. I was in my office reviewing invoices when my sous chef, Jerome, knocked on my door. Chef, you've got a visitor. It's your brother. I looked up, surprised Daryl had the nerve to show his face here. Tell him I'm busy. He's not alone. He brought 3 of our old cooks from Williams' Family Kitchen. That got my attention. I walked out to find Daryl and Danny, Jose and Keisha, 3 cooks I'd personally trained, standing in my dining room. It was 2 p.m. between services. What's this? I asked. Danny stepped forward. He was a young man I'd taken under my wing 3 years ago, teaching him everything I knew. Chef Susan, we wanted to talk to you. Williams' Family Kitchen. It's not the same. Daryl doesn't know what he's doing. He changed your recipes trying to make them his own, and they're terrible. Customers are complaining. Last week he threw a tantrum and fired 2 servers for asking questions. Jose nodded. We came to ask, are you hiring? I looked at Marcus. He looked broken, defeated. Good. Marcus, did you bring them here to apologize for them leaving? Or are you here for something else? He swallowed hard. I came to beg. For help. For anything. Dad had a heart attack last week. The stress. The restaurant is bankrupt. We're losing everything. I know I don't deserve it, but please. You're right, I interrupted. You don't deserve it. You never did. I turned to the 3 cooks. You're hired. Full-time positions, better pay than you were making, and you'll actually be respected here. Start Monday. Their relief was visible. Marcus's face crumbled. Susan, please. Get out of my restaurant, Marcus. And don't come back. I told myself I wouldn't go. Told myself Dad made his choices and now had to live with them. But Chef Sterling pulled me aside one evening and said something that stuck with me. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, he said. I'm not saying forgive him. I'm saying go see him, if only to close that chapter for yourself. So I went to the hospital on a Tuesday morning. Dad was in room 412, hooked up to monitors and looking fragile in a way that made my chest ache despite everything. Mom was there, her eyes red-rimmed. She stood when I entered. Susan. You came. I'm here to see Dad, not reconcile with you, I said flatly. Dad opened his eyes. Susan. His voice was weak. You came. I sat in the chair by his bed, keeping my distance. I came to tell you something. You destroyed me. You took everything I worked for and gave it to Daryl because I wasn't man enough to deserve it. Do you understand what that did to me? To know my own father valued his sexist legacy more than his daughter's talent. Tears slid down his weathered cheeks. I was wrong. I was so wrong, baby girl. I thought I was doing what was right, what tradition demanded. But I killed everything you built. I destroyed my own legacy because I couldn't see that you were always the one carrying it. Williams' Family Kitchen is gone, I said. The bank foreclosed last week. Everything you and Mama built gone. He nodded, closing his eyes. I know. I deserve it. What you deserve, I said carefully, is to know that I'm successful despite you, not because of you. Metamorphosis is thriving. I'm opening a second location next year. I did all of that without your name, your restaurant, or your approval. 6 months later, Dad died. The funeral was small. The community that once packed William's family kitchen had heard the stories. They knew what he'd done. Many came to pay respects to Mama's memory, not his. At the wake, Daryl pulled me aside. He'd lost weight, looked hollow. Susan, there's something you should know. About the transfer. My stomach clenched. What about it? It wasn't just Dad's idea. He couldn't meet my eyes. I pushed for it. I told him I deserved it more because I was the son. I was jealous of you, of your talent. I convinced him that giving you the restaurant would be a waste because you'd just marry someone and walk away. I poisoned his thinking for months before he finally agreed. The betrayal was a knife twisting in an old wound. You did this? Deliberately. I thought I could do what you did. I thought it was easy, that you just got lucky. His laugh was bitter. I destroyed everything and it's all my fault. Dad's death, the bankruptcy, everything. And the worst part? You'll never forgive me and I don't blame you. He was right. I wouldn't. I walked away from Daryl at that funeral and never looked back. Mom tried to apologize later, crying about how she should have defended me. But apologies don't erase years of favoritism and betrayal. Some family bonds once broken can never be repaired. 2 years after walking out of William's family kitchen, I stood in my second metamorphosis location, watching the opening night service flow like a well-choreographed dance. The space was even more beautiful than the first, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the waterfront, an open kitchen where guests could watch us work, art from local Black artists covering the walls. Chef Sterling approached with a glass of champagne. To your success, chef. We clinked glasses and I looked around at what I'd built. 23 employees, all paid fair wages with benefits. A menu that honored my heritage while pushing culinary boundaries. A restaurant that bore my name and my vision. But as I drove home that night, passing the empty lot where William's family kitchen once stood, now just bare concrete and weeds, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph. Not satisfaction. Grief. I grieved for the little girl who'd stood on a stool learning to knead dough, believing her father when he said she was special. I grieved for the relationship we'd never have now. I grieved for Mama, who would have been so proud but wasn't here to see it. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out an old photo. Mama, Dad, Marcus, and me, back when we were a real family. Before ambition and tradition and sexism tore us apart. I traced Mama's face with my finger. I did it, Mama, I whispered. But it cost me everything. Success tasted like ash in my mouth. Because the truth was I'd won the war but lost something I could never get back. My family. My history. The naive belief that love and loyalty meant something. The restaurant empire I'd built stood on the ruins of everything I'd once held dear. And as I sat there in the dark, I realized the saddest truth of all. I'd trade every star, every review, every success, if it meant I could go back to being that 7-year-old girl standing on a stool, believing in her father's love. But some things once broken can't be unmade. Some betrayals leave scars that never heal. And sometimes winning means losing the things that mattered most. I was successful. I was powerful. I was free. And I had never felt more alone. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share your own experiences with family betrayal in the comments below. Sometimes, knowing we're not alone is the only comfort we have. And remember, your worth isn't determined by who recognizes it. Sometimes the family we need is the one we build ourselves. What would you have done in Susan's situation? Let me know in the comments.